everybody. We're here today with another very special interview and something that we've been very excited about. We wanted to introduce Dr. Gavin Wood, the co-founder of Ethereum and the founder of Polkadot. Gavin, welcome to Bali.
Thanks, lovely to be here.
For our community who may know surface level information about you or not have followed your life as closely, could you give us the backstory of who you are and all of your many accomplishments over the journey? Maybe the condensed version.
Sure. Grew up in England, went to university, got a PhD in music visualization, turning music into pictures. Worked for Microsoft Research as a researcher for a little while, as a coder researcher. And eventually 2013, got into a bit of Bitcoin stuff, mostly just on the back of an article that I read in a paper. I knew of it since 2011, but anyway. Never bought early, and where I didn't keep it. But late 2013, I got the Ethereum, sort of early version of the Ethereum white paper from Vitalik, and offered to help code it. Started coding it December that year, and then co-founder a month or two later. CTO of the Ethereum Foundation for a year or so, and then left to form Parity Technologies. We did a bunch of blockchain work, made a Bitcoin client, made an Ethereum client, made a Zcash client. And then 2017, set up the Web3 Foundation, launched, did a crowd sale for Polkadot, launched Kusama a couple of years later, and then Polkadot, I think finally in 2020 with Parachains in 21. And then I've basically just been trying to get the Polkadot product to where I had set out in the Polkadot paper that I'd sort of written back in 2016. And the last couple of years I've been focused primarily on Jam, which is a major technical upgrade for Polkadot. And also some proof of personhood stuff, which is hopefully going to be launched later this year.
Very excited about. We've actually covered a lot of the backstory. So we've produced quite a lot of research over the years. We've got a large Ethereum-based community who followed your journey from Ethereum over to Polkadot, and a lot of our community be quite familiar with the cycle of Parachains and the launch of Parachains, Akala Moonbeam going down, but probably maybe missed a lot of the more recent developments as the space became more cluttered and people became more distracted. Polkadot's at quite an interesting point right now because it's almost like the rebirth of regenesis of the next phase of Polkadot post Parachains. What excites you right now about the ecosystem, and how healthy do you feel it is? What's your main thing that gets you excited in the morning about the ecosystem?
I think it's mostly the people, right? The people of the ecosystem are really, especially ones that have been around for a few years now, are really, broadly speaking, they have the right sort of mindset, right? They understand why they're building what they're building. They understand why they're using the technology that they're using. I think the other sort of thing that I love about Polkadot is the platform, right? The technology that we've built is really good technology. It's ready for building great products that are going to make a difference, not for the whatever it was, 300,000, 400,000 crypto users in the world, but everyone else.
Yeah.
And that's really what it was built for. Now, I think to some extent, the technology, the products that exist on Polkadot at present do have a degree of reliance on being a crypto citizen already, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a limited audience. And as you said, they're quite distracted a lot of the time. And so this is something that I'm hoping we're going to fix with, a number of initiatives, not least the proof of person.
I know that this is a really relevant thing in this part of the world and something that there's a lot of initiatives trying to kick off on. My understanding is that you coined the term Web3. Is that accurate?
I believe so.
I think we should take credit for that because, like when we're trying to move to a Web3 future, how would you describe that? Like in your words, in someone who's coined the term, like what was your vision there?
Yeah, so this is an interesting point, right? Web3, when I coined the term, this is back in 2014, April 2014, shortly before my 24th birthday. The term was one for the technology the technology set that I saw us developing into as we were developing Ethereum, right? So we were developing Ethereum, smart contracts platform. If you read the original white paper, at least an early version of it, you'll see that it treats Ethereum really as a sort of Bitcoin with scripting, with better script. That's how Vitalik sort of saw it. When I came along, I saw it as an important component in building a better web, right? In building massively multi-user applications. But I saw it as a component, not as everything, right? I saw other components in there like BitTorrent, right? Like a browser, like some sort of internode communication system that didn't have to go via a consensus mechanism and pay transaction fees. So Web3 is a technology set. That's how I view it. Now, I don't know, it's become rather diluted, right? A lot of these distracting projects and people out there sometimes use Web3 not entirely in the original sense of the word. Is what it is. So, what is it that brings a person to Web3? Why should we use Web3 and not Web2 or our banking app or iPhone or Apple stuff, right? In essence, agency. Web3 enables effective agency, intentional agency. It allows you to be an agent of your own destiny, right? An agent of society. And this is really, this is what underlines Web3. Now, when I wrote the original sort of manifesto or whatever, if you want to call it, it didn't have much of this angle. It basically just said, this technology should exist because otherwise you, through governments or corporations or institutions, they will fuck you over. But it didn't say kind of like what your mindset should be in general not to be fucked over.
Yeah,
right? There was no sort of underlying, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, personal philosophy or socio-political philosophy. And that, I think, is needed. And I think, it's not just me who is seeing this. You will, if you have some conversations with some very insightful people out there, and I have some of these, call some of these people my friends, you will find that they will kind of say, we need something more than just the technology. We need, if we're going to take this technology to the mainstream, we
need spices.
Well, yeah, it's I don't know. It's like kind of giving people some reason to go the extra mile, because you have to go the extra mile, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at the moment, the extra mile is get a fucking exchange account, right? Go through KYC.
Up to your eyeballs.
Right? Yeah. Figure out, go through the bank transfer, have your bank tell you actually you can't transfer to that account because it's a known exchange account and we don't trust you with crypto.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Yeah.
Right? The on-ramping experience is awful. And it's awful for a reason. Yeah. The establishment doesn't especially want 8 billion people on-ramping themselves.
We can cut out intermediaries and they become redundant. Like, I think you just said it recently, but the system is not going to go quietly. They're going to fight to maintain their status in the supply chain of money. I think, like what you've been talking about, from our research, I cut my teeth in Ethereum. That's where I first got exposed. And I developed a great love for that ecosystem. I've worked in it for, since 2017. It's been where I was. But I obviously followed your journey to Polkadot because of decentralization. Like, I had a business outside. I became a bit of a decentralization maxi. And now it saddens me a little bit to see our industry probably have 3 main cohorts. There's the decentralization maxis. There's the people who are here to make money and they're trying to trade it. And then there's probably people who are following a crowd or a sheep because it seems like the cool new buzzword type sort of thing to do. And they'll zone in and out depending on what the news tells them the market cycle has topped. It saddens me that the decentralization maxi community, I feel, has shrunk. What would you want? You spoke about agents the other day. What would you want as an agent of this ecosystem particularly to be doing? Like, what do you want on the tip of their spear trying to drive this ecosystem forward?
Well, firstly, they should understand what it means to be an agent. It's not, it's probably a little bit more than what most people understand. And even if it's not, having the list there at the front of your mind, reminding yourself, even if you could probably think about it given enough time, this, I think, is crucial to acting properly. That's the first thing. The second thing, once that is done, is education. It's helping other wannabe agents, would-be agents, get to that point. And then the third thing is broad advocacy. It's bringing this mindset to people outside of this sort of crypto sphere. And, you say decentralization maxi. I find this term, again, decentralization, I find has become a bit diluted.
Sure.
So this is why I think with terms, you just got to go for the jugular. And this is why I quite like the agent term. It's well understood in economics. Decentralization often is confused with distribution. It was done 10 years ago. I think someone even wrote a graph where they showed like centralization, decentralization, distribution. And what you probably think is decentralization, certainly what I thought is decentralization, was described as distribution. And what I thought is federalism was described as decentralization. It was like a halfway step, right? From centralization. Then it's like you kind of break it up into clusters and kind of connect the clusters a bit. And that apparently is decentralization. So it's like kind of what banks are at the moment, right? And then apparently distribution is where you actually pull it all apart into its components. I don't know. But I think, unfortunately, it is a bit of a diluted and woolly term. And this is why I like the term agency, because it emphasizes the individual nature of it. You could also say self-sovereignty, but I think this is maybe a little bit, it's a longer sort of term, right? It's two words. And maybe the sovereignty thing kind of scares some
controversial,
people a bit.
Yeah.
So I think agency, economists understand agency. I think is relatively uncontroversial, but still strong. So I think this is really what it's about. It's about helping people understand what their mindset is. I say should be, but I think is. I think most of the audience already are convinced. They're not only persuading on this point; they just need to understand themselves better. And then it's a short leap to say, well, look, in order for you to fulfill this personal philosophy, you need this technology because of all of this other shit, all these other services. Whether it's Apple, Netflix, or the local bank, or Solana.
I'm glad you said it.
They are not they're not facilitating your agency.
Yeah.
At least not to a sufficiently strong degree. Solana's not as bad as Apple, all right.
Okay.
But
the lesser of evils, perhaps. We do have some very heated debate in our ecosystem, in our community about this, because we do have a large Solana community that engages with us. And And it's always a hot topic of conversation, which is why we're very excited, because in this part of the world, there seems to be a willingness to adopt these technologies and to experiment with them. And for those agents from the Polkadot ecosystem, which I like to count myself in, we've had to fight a bazooka of money from these other ecosystems to convince these prime institutions that would come and build in a Web3 environment to not go with a name that shall not be mentioned ecosystem.
Well, you see, this is the thing. Money can get you attention, but it's costly.
Yep.
And if that attention doesn't lead to conversion, like to long-term conversion, because at the end of the day, the money is not intended for the intention behind the money isn't for that. It's for short-term gains or short-term usage. It doesn't really matter. Then you bide your time. You wait. Yeah. There is no great need to fight money with money. If anything, you fight money with ideology.
Okay.
Right? You say, well, look, yeah, they have the money. They're backed by huge VCs. Of course they have the money. They're backed by the establishment. They're an establishment player. I mean, and if you want to carry on in your establishment lifestyle, feel free. But here is our philosophy. This is why we do not believe that an establishment lifestyle is good for you. And if you want to break from your establishment lifestyle and go with our philosophy, we provide the technology for you, and here is how you use it. Yeah? And maybe there's some sweetness along the way. Don't get me wrong. I'm not against a little bit of sugar sprinkled at the right time, in the right place, that is done fairly. But that's a big difference between pointing a money hose at a football team.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We'll let everyone read into that one. As someone building in the ecosystem specifically, I am very grateful for things like the PBA. It saddens me when we do lose teams to other ecosystems because they have chosen to go follow the path of money versus maybe their moral decision to build in the ecosystem. So I'm very grateful for things like the PBA specifically coming to this part of the world, which we're trying to champion this technology in. The final question, I guess, for today is, where does the PBA go from here? We see that this is a huge recruitment tool, and I've spoken to a lot of the students since we've been here for the 3 weeks who are not all from our ecosystem, but have seen it as a great opportunity to come and learn from the best. Where do you want the PBA to go? Where's the grand vision here?
I mean, at the end of the day, the PBA is part of our ideology. Our ideology is that education is an important part of the delivery of a better society. The technology can only go so far. People need to know why they're using the technology. And this can be the users, but it can also be the developers. PBA is, and it can also be the decision makers, right? So PBA, there's PBAX, which is more sort of general, perhaps for enthusiasts, for users as well. PBA itself, primarily for developers, engineers, techies, a little bit founders, and these days also decision makers. Educate to liberate. That's what my trousers say.
Okay, we might have just found that title for the interview.
But that's what it's about. Education is about helping people understand their world better. And our little bit of education helps them understand a world around Web3, around Polkadot, and to some extent around agency. Maybe in the future, there'll be a little bit more on the agency side. Maybe in the future, there'll be a little bit more on the product side, a little bit more on the reaching regular people side, and a little bit less on the hardcore, this is how Polkadot was built side. This is my suspicion of sort of where PBA goes in terms of syllabus. I think what I am absolutely convinced of is that PBA and education in general is an absolutely crucial component to our broad, what would I call it, project philosophy, right? The philosophy of Polkadot, if you like. And in some sense, the philosophy of my philosophy of Web3. And this is why the money is being, to the extent that we have money, is being pointed at, in part, education efforts like this, proper education efforts that are academically rigorous, education efforts that focus on some of the underlying concepts and some of the underlying rationales and some of the underlying disciplines like economics, like game theory, like cryptography, rather than maybe some other courses that focus on much more immediate usage things like APIs, like how to produce a meme coin as soon as possible. Yeah, we're not here to get that dopamine rush. We're here because we think if enough people use this tech, it will make the lives of the world better.
Well said. Thank you for all that you're doing. We follow you closely and we really appreciate you championing these causes. We know that there's a long journey ahead for this industry. So thank you for what you're doing and thank you for coming to Bali.
Lovely to be here. Thank you.
For those who want to tune along, we'll have heaps more research and content come out over the sides of the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned with Republic Labs and we'll have much more soon.